Hey, welcome to The Grind, where we're grinding out what it means to be a follower. And along the way, I'm talking to you about some things or some thoughts that may seem random, disconnected, but when you put them all under the same umbrella, you begin to discover that all of it is covered by this idea that it takes some work and it takes some effort to get this thing called faith right. Jesus said it this way: take up your cross and follow me. Okay, a couple things there. You got to take up your cross. That's a little bit of work. You got to follow. That's a little bit of action and motion. That's part of what it means to be a follower. Jesus doesn't say, sit and become part of the frozen chosen. No, instead, he is calling us to move and compelling us to move forward. In John Steinbeck's delightful little book called Travels with Charlie, it talks about how the author and his dog took to the highways. They traveled hundreds of miles, encountering all sorts of interesting people in intriguing situations. There is another book out there called Blue Highways, which is another casual travel log that, if you like to read such things, is certainly worth reading. It's about a guy who gets fed up with life in the fast lane and decides that he's going to get off road and take some of those bigger, longer roads, and he deliberately takes back roads to get to the places that he needs to go, and along the way discovers the heartland of America. It's similar to what On the Road with Charles Kuralt was, that some of you might remember from being on TV in the 60 Minutes era in the glory days years ago, where he would do the same thing with a camera crew. And he kind of would go off-road and find those things that you don't normally get to see, a piece of America that you might not normally get to see. I have to admit, I am a bit charmed by that kind of thing. I like the back roads. I like to see the old bridges. I like to see the roadside America attractions. I like to see the full service stations that are still out there. I like the mom and pop shops. I like to see those folks that are not necessarily the Walmart box store, although I use those and love those as well. But I like that small, hardware store that's family owned and family operated, or that place that's got a little bit of nostalgia or history to it. There is something about that intrigues me. And it gives me a glimpse of a world that happens, and it's happening all the time, where people are just doing their best and they're making it count. If you ever take a road trip with me, and we have the luxury of not having to do I have to be there in an hour on the interstate, I am notorious for getting off the interstate and taking those exits and trying to seek out and find those places that are either from a bygone era, or those places that maybe time seems to have forgotten, or that have been created by people who just want to live life a little bit differently. It could be anything from a man who's converted his house into a UFO in South Carolina. It could be to oversized statues sitting in the parking lot of a gas station convenience store just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Or it could be as simple as a guy who has taken all the junk that he could find and created works of art with it and put it all over his front yard and then given it a name, and people come by just to see what he's created. Something about that intrigues me, not because I have unlimited amounts of time just to go do that kind of stuff, but I think that there are times that you get a greater appreciation for people and the places that are out there when you take the time to travel the miles, because those are the miles that matter. I think it's silly for us to think that God has somehow taken our calling and somehow converted our calling to match the convenience that we so much long for in life. The words calling and convenient in my vocabulary don't seem to go together. They don't necessarily click. I think the call of God is to go wherever it is that He might call you to. I think the call of God is to go off-road sometimes. I think the call of God is to learn to see things that maybe others miss. Because if you've ever traveled down an interstate, you know exactly what that looks like. You read the exit signs looking for your next stop, but you go because it's quicker, it's more efficient, you can drive faster, and you can get from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time. Or you can take the back roads. And you can wind and you can twist, and you get lots of stoplights, lots of small towns, various speed limits. Find yourselves on terrain that's not quite as nice to drive on as the interstate, but the sights, are always better. And I think that sometimes we forget that the miles matter. It's not how fast we get there, but it's the journey to get there that counts. That's part of what it means to embrace the grind. It's embracing the journey and learning to see and appreciate those things that might come a little bit off-road. Don't be afraid to get off-road. Don't be afraid to slow down long enough to take a look at your surroundings. Don't be afraid to see what others might miss, because in doing so, you might be looking at exactly what God has placed you in that place to see. And what you see might just impact your life and make an impression that will last forever, and one that you can share with others. It's part of what it means to live the grind. Grind it out. Until next time, you keep grinding.